Dancy, everyone. I'm the captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun, and with me, my co-host, my friend, the president, Lawrence Gervais. We're broadcasting from Calgary in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We would like to acknowledge that these lands are also the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, the Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. We'd also like to say thank you to our First Nation friends, to the Métis settlements, and to Métis brothers and sisters and families. We'd also like to give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for the time she allows us to be here to share her bounty. And now, folks, let's get the wheel squeaking. Lawrence, here we are again. This, I'm always a bit excited, at the fact that you and I get to sit across from each other rather than hidden behind virtual, media, as it were. And actually be here to connect it. But our second week where we're at the vaccine clinic that is reshaping how we are going to provide hopefully new services, new cultural connection here in Alberta.
Mm-hmm. No, we're very excited to be here. I know I am. You know, you kind of, when you venture out and you're not going to be grabbing all your equipment and you're loading up the truck and you're like, wow, I'm going to see these people in person. But no, it's been rewarding and it's been very exciting, and we're pretty excited to be a part of this again in person.
Well, and funny you'd mention that. You're right. When all you have to do is click that little record button at home, it actually is pretty easy. When all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, oh, we're going to a whole new level. We're actually amongst people again, and that we're going to have, the fabulous guests that we often have on our show, that they're going to be here and that they're participating. Yeah, I do feel that we are that one step closer to getting back to what all of us want to consider normal. But I also hope that, folks, all the listeners out there, we appreciate the comments that you send our way. tsw@métis3.org. Lawrence and I like having the conversation about the information that you send to us and the questions that you send. But the fact that we're finally getting a little bit through this allows me to appreciate, the struggle that everybody, not just us, not just here in Calgary, not just here, Southern Alberta, not just here in the province, everybody around the earth has been struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, I did hit record and I had to double check.
So you essentially did everything that you needed to do.
That's pretty much it.
And we're very lucky to have, such background support when it comes to, helping film us. Thanks everybody for participating. Thank you to all of our subscribers.
We only have one person here. I don't know what you're looking at.
There's people everywhere, it seems, around us. Let's jump into a couple of conversations, Lawrence. The province is starting to move forward. We're starting to see that we're going to see more opening up. There's lots of conversation. I am praying that we get through this a little bit further so that we get the Calgary Stampede. I want to see the Edmonton exhibition start to open up again. There's challenges when it comes to the borders that are happening throughout, whether it's between us and BC or whether it's anybody who may be going east. But even there's that unique challenge that's happening right now with the Montana border, where people were going across in order to get their vaccines, and that the First Nation there was utilizing that available vaccine dose to share with their neighbors, with their community. All of a sudden, hopefully this opening up helps us reflect on how important those things were, but that this is still a challenge.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge, and really hard to forecast on really anything opening up, because really at the end of the day, it's not our decision.
No.
And it, some days it's good and bad. Sometimes you feel like everything should open up, and then the next day you feel like, no, we should just be careful here type thing. And then the next day it's like, oh, everything should be opening up. And then you go, yeah, it's this whole roller coaster ride that we're on right now. And the government, certainly are driving that roller coaster, and that they're part of the whole thing, right? So, it's something that we have to really live by for the next while until we get a hold of this.
Well, and even our own office, right? That you have to set controls on. We have our vaccine clinic that's coming up. I think it's important that, right, we're not the ones, you're right, setting the policy. But when that policy is being set, we do need to follow it, because they're trying to set a standard for the majority of the people in order that says, in our case, let's keep our space as safe, as clean as possible, because as we prepare for that vaccine clinic, in our little office space, that we've set it up that it's the safest.
Yes, for sure. And we make attempts to do that, of course, at ours, and we want to make sure that it's a very cultural experience also. And certainly what they have here at this larger clinic is kind of the model for how all these other clinics will sort of operate. And we're not out of it yet. I mean, a lot of people, we're not even announcing the second doses yet. So.
No, actually, that's a good point. We finally put kids back into school, and there's still mixed emotions all over the map of, is this time, but how much longer do we wait? Again, the higher ups above us are watching the numbers going, here's what we're seeing, here's what we can generally safely forecast in prediction. If there's going to be those people who decide not to get vaccinated, they may end up being part of the herd, right? The herd that will end up getting COVID, and then as a result, instead of taking the vaccine, they're going through the process of actually having it. But, the province is working, and with the amount of time that's gone by, I think we're making the right moves, the right decisions, and we have to support them. And if they say, listen, it's time to slow down or shut down, we're starting to see, if you read about Australia and some of the other places in the world, they fought, but now they're starting to even see, you can't hide. You can't close the borders from the vaccine. Or from the virus. It seems to find you.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Remind me to learn all these words before. It's only been a year and a half. I mean.
Yeah. And podcast. This whole thing was based on the COVID-19.
Right, virus.
Pandemic, yes.
The pandemic. I'll have to make sure that I use those more frequently in conversation, because you can't go anywhere right now without having that conversation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But this show is a bit unique today because we have a number of guests who are going to be coming on. I think it's time that we bring back, which is an exciting opportunity, I think, for me, a superstar in the Métis Cultural Center when it comes to music, when it comes to jigging, when it comes to somebody we've really connected with strongly here, and I want to continue to have a strong relationship. Alex Kusturok, back on the squeaky wheel. Alex, the last time you were on the squeaky wheel, we got a chance to listen to you play. I mean, I've heard you play many, many times. I mentioned before, bought CD, shared it with, my family. I guess I probably should have bought more rather than just buying one and sharing it with my family. But by the end of this, I'm sure we'll have bought some more. But I want to say thank you again. Every time I get a chance to hear you play, I smile. And here in a unique place that we are today, with this vaccine clinic here in Alberta, in southern Alberta, in Calgary. I was listening to the musical connection that you had outside, but when you travel, I guess before I get too much into too many questions, how many fiddles do you travel with?
Only one, and I just recently bought myself a new fiddle, a new to me fiddle, and I only have one, right? We had talked last time about having that one instrument, and I was kind of on and on about switching up my fiddles. Haven't really found the one, I've found the one since then.
Where Lawrence, I think you have 2 or 3 guitars, and I've never even seen you play one of them.
Well, this is true. No, actually, we did play one gig together, remember?
That's true. That's true. Maybe you and I should be following. But actually, Alex, my attitude has always been, whichever instrument I'm holding at that time, whether it's mine or somebody else's, during that short period of time, that's my instrument. That's the one that I get to hold on to. That's the one I get to play. But it does actually kind of surprise me because you actually traveled a bit of a distance to get here. Cold Lake, I understand? Yes, sir. Yeah. So you didn't think to yourself, well, what happens if I just leave this behind at a local McDonald's? Maybe I should have a second one hidden underneath the back seat.
That would be an expensive burger if I left it at McDonald's.
I bet, actually,
Yeah.
based on the one that you likely play. And how often do you find people give you an instrument? We're going to get to more vaccine stuff, but that is a fiddle of theirs saying, because this happens to me a lot when it comes to playing music. Boy, they show me this guitar and they say, this is a fabulous sounding guitar. How often does somebody give you their fiddle and you make it sound the way it's supposed to sound?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question. I mean, before, when I used to go out and check out a band or go to a dance with no intention of playing, there'd be a fiddle player there, and I'd end up playing a couple tunes, right? There's been a couple that I've really liked, right? But there's been a couple that you just have to work for every note, and they're tough to play. So I mean, whether it's a high sounding fiddle or a low sounding fiddle, you just need something, that kind of suits your style. Like from the last podcast that I was on, I'm an aggressive player. I go for it. There's a lot of fiddles that can't handle that, right? And there's some that can.
What would be fabulous is if Lawrence had his guitar here, and at the end of your playing with your fiddle, you walked over and just kicked your foot right through Lawrence's guitar. That way it wouldn't affect any of your or my equipment, but in the end, it would be a show for our listeners.
I think so, and I think that would be my last gig for Region 3. I
only have a Martin guitar.
It's only Martin.
Oh, well, then you'll have to bring the one George gave you, that old Framus.
Yeah.
Though my dad would be sad to see it go. My dad finally figured out that this guitar that he'd bought in the 60s was essentially just a bunch of pieces of plywood that were screwed together. That thing's not quite the to the level of the kind of equipment that I'm sure you're used to. Now, it's been quite a while. Were you starting to see opportunities in your fiddle and music career to get back out and things started to stall again? Or where do you see, because I know you were doing some online teaching, you still have that work. Were you starting to see that there's opportunities? Did they get pulled back but just pushed back?
No. And, it's been virtual contests, virtual lessons, virtual shows. And up until the end of July, I'm booked with virtual stuff. This is my first time since October. In October, I traveled to Winnipeg to play on APTN and to be filmed for that. But this is the first time that I've hopped in the car and actually went somewhere with my fiddle. And it's the second time throughout this whole pandemic. There's been a couple of there's been a couple of outdoor parties or some reunions that got pushed back, but nothing big. It's all virtual.
So what would you see as maybe changing? We're doing stuff in person, but it's a little bit unorthodox. But have you play outside? And we're going to see you probably play for people getting their injections, but at least it's a gig, right? And, we kind of have to adapt to where we are as artists, and we kind of go for it. I'm not an artist, sorry, but...
Lawrence!
I am trained in arts administration, but it is a little unorthodox, but, we kind of have to take what we can get right now before we start to open up a little bit and start to relax.
Yeah.
We want to see events start happening in August. I don't think they're going to happen in July, but I know maybe August is another goal for us, but we'll see.
We're hoping, and to be honest, I left the house at 4:30 this morning, and it was tough to get moving. After spending over a year where all of my work took place in my studio, there was a bit of excitement, but there was also a bit of, wow, I'm used to being at home, and after years of being on the road, it's almost a scary place to be, where you're so content at home, and this is like I said, it was tough, but to have things open up and to have things, I'm just happy to play wherever.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's a vaccine clinic or a dance or we're out in the parking lot, as long as we can play and have music.
I remember, this was a long time ago, but I remember going to my first hockey practice of some year. I think I was living back down east. Mom and dad got me up and off we go. and I got there and I realized I forgot my hockey stick. I had everything else. Do you ever forget your fiddle bow?
I've put the wrong bow in my case before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, because I play hard, you know, a lot of the bow hair breaks, and I used to go through a lot of bows. And I've just, when I was in a rush, I would pack up my fiddle, pack up my bow, drive for 6 hours, and then show up and have the bow have two strings on it when it was time to play. But never really the fiddle per se. There's one story, and I'll end with this. It was my first gig in a long time, about 2 years ago, and somebody was picking me up to head down to Banff, you know, and there was a gig there at the Cave and Basin, and I walked out of the apartment, and it was an old violin case, and it just fell open. My fiddle broke.
Ooh.
So I had to borrow one on the way.
I would imagine your relationship with the other fiddle players, they're more than eager or happy to share, you know, an instrument.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or there's spare that's hanging up on the wall.
Because for some reason they have a spare. But with your whole world that's happening when it comes to virtually, have you taught yourself all of the virtual hand signs of that if people are watching you and cheering, that if they clap all the way around the screen, they're celebrating around the world, or they're straight clapping, or there's the just hand gestures?
I've maybe encountered those once on Zoom. That was the platform. Right? Yeah. You know, it's mostly just on Facebook Live or pre-recordings, and then, you know, the crew puts them together. But I haven't encountered that yet. Right.
Okay. Actually, that's a good point, because if you're just streaming, you're not getting as much of that straight on Zoom connection. Yeah. But it's an oddity when you look, and you can see there's 50 or 100 screens looking at you, and there's no sound. You know, the only sound you hear is your breathing. Yeah. That they've all been listening. But I think that's fabulous.
Well, how do you know if they're laughing at you then?
Usually they hold a sign up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's just a hook, and they're like, Memphis, you got to get off the stage. Like, your time is done. Or they put a countdown on, I think, for me. So what's going to happen now? For you, while you're down here, you know, you came in, you got to see how this clinic is moving forward. You know, we're so lucky that we got a chance to play, and I know you're going to get a chance to play for the people who are here getting vaccinated and this opportunity. What else are you going to fill your time with in between each one of these shows?
Well, I've been working on my invitation to Augusta. You know, so that's, you know, I'm so busy, like I said, with the virtual stuff. But for the first time in years, I have a membership at the golf course in Cold Lake, and I just love it.
Oh, that's fabulous.
I love it.
Yeah. No, I think that's so good. We're all finding, you know, again, everybody always works hard. It's easy to find the negatives. But when we start to have the conversations with people who we admire, we respect, that we enjoy our weekly conversations, you're starting to hear people say, I'm trying this again, or I'm exploring this, because it's my chance to get out of whether it's, right, I can only play my guitar so often. I imagine you do need a break from your fiddle, though when I've seen you, sometimes I don't think you ever stop. You know, the energy is so, but when you know, it's fun to hear that people are getting back into things that they're passionate about. And I say it every year that I got to get out and swing the sticks a little bit more. And it just seems like somehow something comes up, but I'm happy to hear that. So we are going to have to hit a round of golf at some point, Alex.
Anytime.
Because then I get a chance to ask more about music.
Anytime.
So I have one question, though. In your videos, you play all the accompaniment. And I like watching those videos because I see you playing the piano, the guitar, and then he throws the fiddle in there, and then you're doing the percussion with your feet. Who edits all that stuff? Is that you?
It's me, yeah. You know, since the start of this pandemic, you figure out, you know, how to do different things. Like, and when I'm asked to do these virtual things as well, like these pre-recording, there's an app for the iPhone, and it's great because I can send it to whoever I want. So I can send it to a backup player from Quebec, or from Cape Breton, and I'm lucky, you know, in my craft that I've practiced so many different styles. So even though I'm doing a bunch of virtual things, I can have a different band with me that sound completely different. I can play a different style of music, or I can play everything myself. And then, you know, to keep it really Métis, right, and have that feel. But in terms of that, yeah, I've learned how to edit. I've learned how to just do a whole bunch of things because of this pandemic with the technology and things.
You've shared a lot of, you know, yourself in conversation with the Squeaky Wheel, Lawrence and I, in the past. I want to pick your brain about one thing. When I talk to, you know, people who want to play guitar, or they want to get involved in something, I would tell them, listen, get your first one, keep it simple. You just want to learn 3 notes, and because it's such a progression of learning guitar, learning the left hand, learning the right hand, learning how it works. Give something to our youth. And folks, this is not just limited to our youth. I also want this to be anybody who wants to learn the fiddle, because my dad learned it at a much older age, and I think he's doing quite well. Give me something that you would share with youth when the first thing they come up to you and say is, "I'd like to learn that." Where do they start? I get it that they probably have to get a fiddle to start, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an instrument or a tool out there that could help start. But let's share something with families and the people who are listening. Alex, give us something that there's a place for them to start, because I know they don't just get right to your skill level, you know, overnight. It's a journey. But where would they start?
You need a fiddle, then you need a couple lessons on how to hold the bow, how to hold the fiddle, and the best thing that you can do is listen to fiddle music, whether it's on a CD or Spotify or wherever, and listen and listen. And, you know, I could teach you fiddle for a half an hour a week, but you're not going to progress. You're not. You know, you're going to get what you put into it, just like everything else. You know, like I've been playing fiddle for 20 some years now, and I eat, sleep, and breathe it. I'm still practicing my fiddle 3 to 4 hours a night, you know, a day, practicing, learning new things. It doesn't stop. So, you know, if you spend 20 years doing something and practicing it, I don't care if it's construction, I don't care if it's university, I don't care if it's whatever. If you put the amount of time in, you're going to be good at it. You know, and yeah, like I tell all my students, if you're expecting to be able to play a tune or whatever after a half an hour a week with me, you're wasting your time.
And then there's also the skill set of actually, you know, kicking the board like you do in order to do a lot of your own drumming. There's 2 skill sets there. So I guess, folks, you heard it here from the great fiddle master, Alex Kusturok, that learning fiddle the way he does is a lot like getting to Jubilee Auditorium. It just takes practice, right? It doesn't just happen overnight, but it becomes part of your passion, your desire, who you are. Mm-hmm. And folks, everybody likes listening to music. So you want to be a part of being connected with community, with your family, with your friends. Everybody likes it. Alex, I think it's fabulous. And because honestly, as silly as it sounds, for all I knew, you were going to say get a fiddle with 1 string, and that's a great place to start. But getting a fiddle and listening to the music so that your mind is connecting with it, yes. That muscle memory comes just with lots of practice.
Have you played at the Jubilee?
No, it wasn't me. It was just knowing how to get there.
Have you played at the Jubilee?
Yes.
Oh, so have I.
In Edmonton.
Sorry. Just so you know, yeah.
Folks, if any of you work for the Jubilee Auditorium, all I'm asking is, can you bring me in just to play 1 song? This is exactly what I'm going to need. And I'll bring both these 2 in so that they can watch me. And this way I get to prove to them. So at some point, I hope to get there. Lawrence, maybe close out Alex, because he's going to be in there getting his fiddle on here right away.
Yeah, we don't want to waste too much of his time because he's going to entertain the troops in there, certainly the nurses are going to be a little bit taken aback, like, what's this fiddle music? But I know we want to thank you for coming down from Cold Lake, and on behalf of Region 3, because you're in Southern Alberta, we welcome you to this territory as a Métis representative, but also take back and let those people in Cold Lake know how wonderful these Métis people are down here.
Yes,
and,
for sure.
I want to thank you for coming today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks to your family. Thanks again for your time here. This is a unique place, and for Lawrence and I to finally get a chance to sit and have a conversation with you, rather than having to have done it by Zoom so many times. This has been a fun experience. So, thank you, folks. Thank you to our Squeaky Wheel listeners. Make sure you look up Alex online. Listen to his fiddle music, because he is a backbone strength when it comes to music in Alberta, as well as Métis music, and his strength in the fiddle.
It's been a long time since I've played a nice slow waltz. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a tune that we composed in 2007. We talk about history. We talk about passing things down. Well, my grandmother, when my mother was playing, she would bring me to all the dances. And when she passed away, we wrote her a piece that's been recorded in Scotland now, different players all over the world. And it's called The Memories of Eva.
Alex, like a fine wine, it only gets better and better with time. That was a touching and warm. Thank you so much for that tune. Every time we get a chance to hear you on the Squeaky Wheel, I find our numbers just shoot up because everybody wants to hear that music. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
I think maybe we do have time for one more, if that's okay.
I don't see any reason why not.
Maybe a little quicker tempo one, if you have one in mind.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Alex, if we didn't make you stop at some point, this place can start on fire. That was outstanding.
Thank you.
I can't say enough about how much I've enjoyed our show today. You know, you have the experts of Métis fiddle culture, Alex Kusturok, but I also want to, I'm really excited to bring our next guest in, Miss Krista White, because of her connection with the Aboriginal Friendship Center. And I'm looking forward to getting a better understanding of all the work that was done to get us here, to get us into this beautiful space in this clinic. So let's welcome her to the show. Krista, I'm going to throw a few things out there before we get to some questions. Aboriginal Friendship Center, there's a number of hats it seems like you wear when it comes to outreach coordinator, community support, spokesperson. Here today, when we get this opportunity to gather at Alberta, the southern Alberta, the inaugural, in a way, vaccine clinic that I commented last week with our guest, Dr. Sal, about just how fabulous this whole building is, how the connection that this agency has built. Your group, the Aboriginal Friendship Center, was a strong part of that. Now, I know that there was a lot of words thrown in there, but I want to know from you, how did that connection happen? How did you find the relationships? And you can see from me, and I brought it up last week, this is like a sporting event almost to me. How did you build on that connection?
First of all, thank you for inviting me here today. And on behalf of the Friendship Center, we'd like to thank you for that. And so this had started kind of like a few months back, and like I'm from Siksika Nation, and I've worked with the Aboriginal Friendship Center of Calgary since 2018, and I've held several hats. I started off as the cultural coordinator, and then so when my contract was up, and then I switched roles to mental health support worker, and then this. So then they hired me full-time, just actually last year, as a community support worker, and then with the additional roles of the spokesperson and as the public relations. And I'm very honored to hold those positions. And so this was a few months back, where Tyler White, who also happens to be, my husband, and he's the CEO with the Siksika Health Services. And I remember this one conversation, in the evening we were talking, and so out at Siksika Health Services, they've been, having their clinics, since the beginning of January, and they were talking about, wanting to provide some, moving up, like into the city, into the urban setting. And so I just happened to work with the, Friendship Center, and, so it kind of started, from there, and, I mentioned to connect with our CEO, Shane Goche. And so this was a few weeks later. And so they had connected, and so here we are today.
I did have a chance to meet Tyler last week. I guess one of the things that I still find somewhat astounding is that we're talking months. That's all this took, right? Here our province, our nation, all of our First Nation friends, the municipalities, Métis communities been struggling with the pandemic for a year and a half, trying to get things sorted out. But then when, Tyler and Shane decided to put their minds to something and say, let's do something different. And obviously it wasn't hard to find you. I'm sure Tyler didn't have any trouble finding you. He just probably had to look across the kitchen table. But for you to bring that agency, to bring the Métis community in and feel so welcome. And I've commented before on our last podcast of just not only the success of that, but also the beauty that has been created, right? The jingle dresses that we see, you know, the awareness that happens, the from the staff outside, the volunteers or the young, you know, the young fellas, the young ladies who are helping, it's fabulous.
Yeah, and I mean, Siksika Health Services is definitely has laid the model and the groundwork for where we are today. And I know they're looking at the rural communities now, and we're very excited to actually hear that because many of our members live in those rural communities also. So we've been supportive of that. And I know they had the announcement yesterday, but we're very intrigued by it as Métis people because here we have a very good relationship with the Friendship Center, but now we're getting into a relationship with Siksika now too. And we're very, very excited about that. You know, me being as president, it's a very, very exciting day for us actually to be a part of this.
Yeah.
When it comes to the location, for example, was there a consciousness when you looked and said, instead of trying to hold it at the Friendship Center, perhaps an area where it could be started, everything could be started clean, like an empty slate? Did you look at it that way, or how did that approach happen? Or was that part of the relationship with the province and the, you know, Alberta Health saying, here's what we want to do? Because there must have been, again, even though this happened so quickly, there must have been some pretty strong steps there to get us here in this successful program.
Yeah. You know, like, you know, just, I guess just kind of, you know, based on my observations, you know, just having, you know, these organizations, you know, their vision and their, you know, what they've always wanted to, you know, accomplish is for the people, you know, especially, you know, our indigenous people of, you know, because here, you know, working here in the city, we work with our most vulnerable population, and sometimes, you know, they fall through the cracks, and just to also get that, you know, those opportunities, equal opportunities, just as the same, you know, Albertan, and to be, you know, also, you know, we also look at the, you know, the healthcare system. You know, you know, we have many of our indigenous populations with health issues, and so, you know, that was, you know, one of the, you know, the positiveness of, you know, getting this going, you know, because of, you know, the detrimental effects that it would have on our people, and just having those same visions, those same goals. You know, with the you know, they started off, you know, small. The phase 1 was in March, and then so they had, which was 65 years, you know, of age and older. And then phase 2, they opened it up to phase 2, which was like the general adult population. And then now we're on to phase 3. And as each phase is, you know, more and more partnerships, more and more, you know, organizations, you know, are getting involved. And I always, you know, stress and say that, you know, like when you're in a marathon race, you know, we're not racing and competing against each other. We're all in this together, and we're going to finish this line together. And that's how I look at this, you know, these immunization clinics, and, you know, just supporting and, you know, being there for our general indigenous population.
I like the analogy that this isn't right. This is a long journey.
Yeah.
But what I found right from the start was, as stressful as it was for everybody who was involved, we are all in this, right? I find that there's a lot of strength in the conversation that I have when I suggest that programs, even specifically like this, may start in one spot. For example, could have just been around the kitchen table for you and Tyler, and it started with a connection within your with First Nation community, and then it expanded. And I've always found that whenever programs or even conversation that Lawrence and I may start from a Métis conversation, but it needs to have value where it extends to all First Nations people. But I like to see that the value extends to Calgarians, to Albertans, Canadians, and you see the success of a program like this. I'd be so excited that all different minority groups are trying something. It's not, all it's doing is advantaging a successful Alberta health program, but it's starting and connecting this community. So again, I often belabor, or I keep sort of hitting on the fact that it's fabulous. It is, you've brought so many people here in a way that I'd made a comment last week that I went through the Alberta Health Services, and with as much respect to all of our Alberta Health Services frontline workers and everybody involved, they didn't have it very well set up. It was long lineups of passing people who hadn't been vaccinated, and it was quite funny. They still thought that I was living where I lived 25 years ago, and I said, no, it's been a few years since I've moved away. So we get it. The practice isn't perfect, but here you've put together an agency that is, trying to make it better. And we've never had in our many generations, a pandemic. So it's all new. We don't expect it to be perfect. Yeah. But folks, this one is just about as good as I could find when you come to the effort that was put in.
Yeah. And it is becoming a model, I think, across North America on how to run an Indigenous clinic. Yeah. And not only immunization, but maybe further methods to establish a clinic here, which we're all in support of. I mean, I lived in Toronto. I seen their clinic. I lived in, I lived and worked in Hastings and in Vancouver, and I seen how they operate their clinic. But, I'm very excited about the new day as we go along and how this process will continue, right? So, we're very excited, and I know we don't want to hold you here too much longer, but, I want to thank you for being here today, and thanks for having us in this clinic, and we look forward to more partnerships with Friendship Center. So, Ross, do you want to take us out?
Yes, big shout out to Krista. Thank you again for your time and for your connection with the community and sharing your spirit and the story about how this happened. Please, when you get a chance, thank Shane for us as well for the effort that he's put in. Thank you, Tyler. We appreciate the fact that not only are we allowed to gather, but we're allowed to be invited to share this conversation. So from all of us at the Squeaky Wheel, and from everybody in the background who helps support this connection, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. I would just also like to add that, the cultural component is, also, very important, bringing each a piece of our culture and sharing it. And that's what really, it's like a community pride, and it's also, it's having like that sense of community, from the children, the ones that come in here, they get to see, the cultural stuff, and then also having the background, the various different, cultural music, sharing that. And I feel that's, that's a component, that really makes it unique. It also really makes it, that having that traditional approach, that traditional approach to healing, and then that Western approach, combining it, it just makes it even more, powerful. And so I just wanted to also share that. And when people do come, we also do smudge, before the clinic opens, like with the staff. with the volunteers. And so it just kind of gives that sense of, that calming effect, especially those that come in. You'll have those that, come in with anxiety. And so, we provide that, that smudging. And that, I also, really feel that, that's being, very unique in that sense. So I just wanted to share that.
And actually, that's an incredibly important point, because there is that anxiety for anybody. These are all new experiences, but from the first person you meet when you pull up right to this clinic at the hotel here, it's comfortable, and then you're politely put in a spot where, don't worry, we're not going to forget about you. We're going to engage you. We're going to bring you in, and then you get the celebration of what happens inside, so that when you've left with a positive strength. And when you're likely coming back at some point for your second vaccine, you're going to be less scared, right? So though a lot of people are getting their second, maybe the timing of how this all worked out, which then started to allow our youth to connect with the, our generation. And this didn't start right just when it was the elderly and seniors. Maybe the timing worked out. So I think that's a very strong point that you made there. This is a comfortable cultural space.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
But Lawrence, thank you again. Thank you for, being a part of setting this up so that, the Squeaky Wheel, myself, we could attend this in order to be a part of this clinic. Thanks for the work that you've done. Thanks for bringing people like Krista White into this conversation and building our relationship with Alex. I've had nothing but a good time as I continue to learn a little bit more myself about my journey through the Métis connection, through the relationships that we have. You're a big part of it, Lawrence. You've brought so many people onto the Squeaky Wheel. I can never tell you which number I'm at, because obviously I have trouble trying to keep track of that, but we're doing well, right? This is great.
Yes, I think we're at number 43, 44. Is that right, Jason? 44, yeah.
Well, the good thing is you don't know either, so really it doesn't make me look too bad.
Well, I mean, I most of the time look good, but I mean, once in a while, it always comes. Once every 10 years.
Yeah, well,
I make a mistake, yeah.
Yeah, once every 10 years. And folks, it hasn't happened yet. So we've probably got another good 6 or 7 years before we have to worry about. So for all of us here, folks, at the Squeaky Wheel, thank you again. Thank you to our listeners, to our subscribers. Make sure you connect with us at tsw@métis3.org. Find us online at métis3.org. Make sure you look up the information that's happening, albertamétis.com, and continue to connect with us. Dancy, folks, thank you again, and thank you here from the Squeaky Wheel.